I've owned my 2001 Trans Am WS6 for 22 years. It was still under factory warranty when I bought this thing in 2003. It also had a 6-speed manual transmission back then, which I really loved. But after about 5 years of owning this car, I switched to a stall automatic with a 2-step and a trans brake because I got really into drag racing. Now, I love my built 4L65E in the Trans Am, and it's only been about 2,000 miles since its last refresh, but it's time. It's time to go back to the 6-speed manual, and maybe one day we'll use the automatic transmission in something else here. I don't know. Now, naturally, I only ordered the best for my turbo Trans Am, so we have a brand spanking new Tremec Magnum 6-speed transmission, a twin disc McLeod clutch, and much, much more from my friends over at Silver Sport Transmissions. But you know what? Before we swap to the manual, let's give this thing a proper send-off, if you will. This thing just shifts perfectly. Just light throttle, driving around, it's the best. But when you want to get rowdy, it just shifts on a dime. So I wired up my trans brake to the cruise control. So we turn it on, we push this button here, and now it's locked in. I'm not on the brake. And you floor it. And it launches. We should do one last launch. Trans brake activated. Here we go. Oh yeah. On a drag radial at the track, it just hooks and it goes. Oh, I'm gonna miss the trans brake. I'm gonna miss it. That's why I'm probably not actually gonna get rid of it. Just not in this car anymore. It's such a nice and controllable car too. And we're gonna make it even better throughout the next few parts of this series. But anyway, let's get back to the shop. All right, guys, before I get too carried away, let's manual swap my turbo Trans Am. All right, let's rip out our automatic transmission. I think the pan gasket is leaking fluid, but that's okay. We'll fix that later. And this is a totally custom trans pan to fit the transmission brake. This is the signal to the brake to activate it. We have transmission cooler lines that are now gonna be removed. I also had a big trans cooler with a fan on it, so we get to get rid of that as well. And swap it over to the Typhoon. The Typhoon's eventually gonna need a new engine, so while we're in there, I'm gonna install that transmission. So this, although is already all-wheel drive and launches like crazy, it will one day launch even better with the trans brake, and that transmission will hold like 1,000 wheel horsepower, which this doesn't have yet. It may, probably not that much, but it'll have more. Now, this pan has a drain plug, which is great because so many factory trans pans don't have a plug. You just gotta make a mess of it. I don't care, call me cheap. I'm saving the transmission fluid. Okay, because it's like brand new. Oh my gosh. I'm supposed to not be making a mess. It is brand new fluid. I mean, it's got like a couple thousand miles on it. It's AMSOIL. It's kind of expensive. There's a lot of it, so I'm gonna save it for the Typhoon. There's nothing wrong with it. You don't always have to dispose of fluid. Look at how red it is. Look at that. It's beautiful. And yes, I'm saving it in a 5-gallon water jug. I'm gonna remove the drive shaft next. It's a 4-inch aluminum that I believe will fit with the manual transmission. It's good to like 1,000 horsepower too. I pulled the end caps off just to make this easier to slide out. Get out of there. There we go. Aluminum drive shafts are awesome. It's just such a massive thing that is light at the same time. How are the splines? Splines are good. All right, hopefully this swaps right over. We're gonna get our flex plate to converter bolts out now. All right, not bad. There's one. I'm getting a trans jack in the mix here, so we'll be able to take the trans cross member down, which I do have the new one for the manual, and then we'll tilt it to get to all the bell housing bolts. I put different size bolts in there many years ago, apparently. That was smart. Start to tilt this guy down a little bit. Might as well just leave this with the transmission. Some bell housing bolts out of the way. I have most of the other ones out, so this trans should start moving. Oh yeah. Oh, it's ready. It is ready. Going down. There we go, there we go. This is definitely one of those transmissions you could have out in like a half hour if you have a lift, you know, and a trans jack and stuff like that. Goodbye. It's much easier to remove the trans cooler lines with the transmission down, so we'll do that. All right, there's one. I have our lines draining the cooler, and I'll remove this air dam here, and that way we can get this out, the trans cooler. Goodbye. This is kind of sad, guys. This is the last time. No more automatic. It's sad. It's exciting though. I got enough auto cars or auto-ish cars like this. That's actually a manual, and that's a manual too. Wait a minute, everything in this area is now a manual. Sweet. I got the manual turbo Jeep Wrangler, and I think that's it. I think I'm up to 4 manual cars at this point. Soon to be 3.5. There you go, Typhoon. Have at it. And yeah, I know. The Typhoon is looking pretty bad. I have to wash and detail this. But if you guys notice the DTS shining away in the background, it's because I ceramic coated the entire car with the Armor Shield Max. This is a super easy application. So once you've washed your car, you can buff it out if you want as well. You're just gonna apply a little of this to the applicator, wipe it on any exterior surface, wait about 60 seconds, and then wipe it away, and you're done. If you can wax a car, you can definitely ceramic coat a car. What I love about the Armor Shield Max is how hydrophobic it makes the surface. So water and dirt just doesn't stick at all. It just beads right off of your paint like that. The Max also brings out a deep glossy shine, and you can really see this on metallic paints like what's on the DTS. And what's great is one of these kits is enough to coat every exterior surface of your car. So you can also coat your wheels so brake dust doesn't stick to them. You can coat the glass, which allows you to use your wiper blades less. And this is one of the best trim restorers on the market. There's no need to buy anything else and spend any more money. If you have this, you can treat all of your faded black trim, and it's so satisfying. Now, if you have a larger truck or SUV, you're probably gonna wanna get 2 of these kits, but for a very limited time and quantity, because this might sell out after this promotion, they're offering $30 off the Armor Shield Max kit, and they rarely do promotions with me on the Max because it sells pretty well. So this is your chance. If you guys have wanted to try out the upgraded version of the ceramic coating, you're gonna save $30 per kit right now. All you gotta do is click on my link down below to get the deal. Oh, and the difference between the original Armor Shield 9 and the Max is this one cures faster. It's a 3-year coating where this is 2, and you get even better hydrophobics. Anyway, enjoy. This stuff is great. And with that, let's get back to the Trans Am. Got the big trans cooler coming out, unclipped the fan from it, and I have these lines actually going through the motor mount. It's just kind of a convenient spot to put them through, so we're just pulling it right through. Oh yeah. All right, so this whole big old thing is going bye-bye. We're gonna be getting rid of a lot of stuff later in the video after this thing is swapped. There's just so much cleanup, guys. I've been building this car since I was like 18 years old. So there's some stuff that now, at age 40, I would redo or just remove. Now, something that's gonna be fun to fix is this right here. So this is a patch. Originally, the car, had a big opening here for the shifter, but since we went automatic, the bodies on the automatic, weren't cut out like this. So they just had a little cable going through with a grommet like this. So anyway, we need to put this back. I'm hoping we can just kind of scrape away a lot of this seam sealer. Okay, so it's kind of flaking right off. That's nice. So this plate was put in from the top. Oh, there we go. It's a nice little chunk. Okay, cool. Feeling hopeful here. So I actually didn't do this part of the swap. So the shop did this and it looks like they painted this black. I'm not sure. All right, I think hammer and chisel is the way to go here. Oh yeah. Goodbye, seam sealer. I've chiseled away as much as I could down there, but it's time to take apart the shifter assembly and we can get just better lighting filming with the T-tops off, and I'm gonna be rocking no T-tops for the vast majority of my time with the Trans Am. There we go. I love T-tops. We're gonna have to move the iPod out of the way. And yes, I still have the original coin slot holder. Look at that, it's got a spring in there. This came with the car. It's factory Pontiac right here to pay their tolls. Yeah, got a lot of stuff in here I gotta clean up. This is actually mostly track slips. I would just jam all my track slips in here, what I run. An 11.5, this is an aborted mission right here from 2012. Yeah, just all track slips mostly. 10.2, that was good. I'm gonna remove the shifter for the last time. A little clip in here. Slides right off. We've been together for a long time. Don't worry, I'm not gonna throw you away or sell you. You're gonna stay with us. Maybe even in the car. I don't know. A lot going on here that's not gonna be going on anymore because we're gonna be getting rid of the methanol injection. So this is the controller for it. This is for an electric cutout that I haven't used in years, so that's going bye-bye. This is the line lock, which we're gonna leave. But for now, let's just pull this up. Okay. I think I got everything disconnected here. Cool. I got all my time slips and stuff out. We're gonna remove the whole center console. Anyone know what these guys are right here? Anyone? Comment down below. What are these slots for? I'll give you a hint. It's what we used to do before the days of the iPod, the high-tech days of the iPod. This thing only works plugged into the TA. There we go. Good old GM quality here. Got 510 mils. Holds the whole thing in. That's actually pretty good. Like nowadays cars sometimes are just clipped together. Like my GTR, that you could just rip the whole center console out with your hands. Come on now. Almost. Okay, center console going bye-bye. Chuck it out the T-top. Okay, I'm gonna pull this cable out. So this goes to the column to lock the gear shifter out, but we won't need that anymore. One more connector. Got the trans brake line right there. So here's what we have as far as our floor goes. Yeah, they seam sealed it up here as well. It was a body shop, so I mean, they did a good job, you know. It's in there. We're just gonna get this whole shifter thing out of here right now. This cable will come out with the floor eventually. All right, so just give us more room to work with. Just ram and jam this thing down to the floor, get it out of our way. There we go, goodbye. Now we're just gonna chisel away. Well, guys, this has turned into an absolute mess. I mean, they did a good job here, I gotta say, but it's been tack welded so many times. Like every inch is a tack weld and then all the seam sealer. So I have just been going to town here with the old Dremel. Everything is nicely protected and we're getting there. We are getting there. I got a couple more tack welds to drill out. Jeez. There's a big rubber boot that goes in there and then we'll have to probably drill it in with some sheet metal screws or something. I don't know. There we go. Last one. All right. Sweet, this is out. Now we have a gaping hole in the ground. All right, guys, I think I'm all done. This should be dry. I made a little paint booth here for the Trans Am. Lots of old license plates. Got some New York action. Yeah, we got North Dakota from the DeLorean, 1991. This one I used to burn things, but here she is, guys. Here is our hole in the floor, painted white. And you can see some of the original holes where the big rubber boot was and will be again. The F-Body's body was never really anything of like super high quality. They put all their money into the drivetrain. So something funny about the 4th gens is they have this hump right here in the passenger side, and there's really no reason for it on this car, but on the 3rd generation Camaros and Firebirds, they had catalytic converters right here, and then GM never wanted to actually change the body. So the 3rd gen unibody structure is very similar to the 4th gen. It wasn't like a complete revision of the unibody. So they just left the hump for many, many years to go. So the 3rd gen ended in 92, but I think those cats were long gone even by then, but they kept it going until 2002, the big hump. So that's what it's there for, literally nothing. Before we start going back together with the manual transmission stuff, we're actually gonna drop the engine oil pan and install a baffle. I did this on the Porsche 911, if you guys remember my LS swapped Porsche. And this is gonna help with oil control to the pickup, which I've never had an issue with. And I guess if I was gonna have an issue, it would have been during my drag racing days when this thing was like lifting off on the front. But it's a good thing to do. Anyway, let's get this oil pan off and I'll show you guys what I'm talking about. All right, it's time to drain us some oil. This oil probably has a couple 100 miles on it, brand new oil pan. I made a video on this car. I think the last one was like 2 years ago where I replaced the leaking oil pan that was warped and a new rack and a new turbo and some other stuff, but I didn't really drive it much after that. Anyway, so this oil has like no miles on it. This is such a shame. There she is, nice and cold, dribbling out, but practically new. Fun fact, the same tool to remove a Mercedes-Benz oil filter housing works on the LS1 filter. See, look at that. Coincidence? I don't think so. The only conclusion I can come up with is that Mercedes and GM were working together on this secret project. Could be no other reason. Let's get all of our 10mm oil pan bolts out. All right, so it's got 2 in the rear that are really long, and the torque spec is a lot less on these. You'll see when we go back together. There we go. Broke the seal. All right, I think she's free. So we'll just lift this side of the engine and just see if it's enough to get the oil pan out. All right, we'll get a good idea. That's how I did it. This oil pan won't come out. I had to look at the last video. I gotta jack the engine up a little bit. But this was a great video, let me tell you. It shows you exactly what to do, which is loosening up both engine mounts. I tried to do it with one and then I needed to do the other, so now I just go right for it. All right, here we go. We're jacking up the engine and we'll relieve the pressure so we can remove this gigantic bolt. You know what, I'm gonna try just to do the one side. This is like deja vu right now. Just wanna see if I could sneak it. It's that dealership mentality, like flat rate. It's like, what's the least amount of work we can do to just get the job done? It didn't work. I took the bolt out of the other side and I got this jacked up a lot. This thing's already getting kind of loose, so we should be all right now. If we can snake it on out. Come on. Oh, I can feel it in there. I can do it, I can do it. Got it. All right. Sweet, there's my beautiful oil pan with like 200 miles on it. And just like the 911, here is our improved racing baffle for the oil pan. And it's got these really neat trap doors. So when you're carving some corners, these will open and close depending on which way you're going to allow oil to flow right in here and get trapped where the pickup tube is. That's where you want it. So this is going to help make sure that there's always oil running through our engine. So let's swap out the old one. Just a bunch of 10s, and it just lifts out like that. And let's see, do we have chunks of engine in here? Nope, not at all. Might as well clean this out though. All right, that looks a lot better. All cleaned up the gasket as well. This is riveted in from the factory. You don't have to replace your oil pan gasket every time. This just bolts in using the original bolts. Hand tight is good on these, very little torque. They're not the biggest bolts in the world, that's all you need. Like I say, it's kind of cool working on the Trans Am with the lightning in the background. It's like staring at the chrome wheel while I'm torquing this. It's pretty neat. 16-year-old Alex would be like freaking out right now to know that I have a Lightning and a WS6 Trans Am. Like, does it get any better? I don't think so. Before we attempt to put the oil pan back in, because hopefully, you know, it doesn't hit the pickup even worse now. There's a couple other little kind of cool trick LS mods that you can do. One of them has to do with the pickup. So I haven't had any issues with this, but from the factory, there's only one bolt that holds the pickup tube flange with the O-ring to the oil pump. But we're gonna add one that puts two bolts in there. So just a flange that kind of holds it, supports it from both sides. Is this kind of fixing an issue I didn't have? Yes. Is it one of those like added insurance things and it's cheap? Yes, it is. And it's shiny, like my Lightning. This is just a 10 mil we can hit with a quarter drive swivel. So we'll remove this one. Are we gonna get a little bit more engine oil? Maybe. Ah, look at that Loctite. Oh yeah. Alex from, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago when I put this engine together, added some Loctite. I didn't need a double bolter kit back then. Just Loctite. I'm gonna try and snake this in through there. Okay, that was pretty easy. Now that one bolt looks a little tough. Stay. A little Loctite there. Let's start this guy first, the easy one. This guy never let me down. I'm gonna tighten this up just a little. All right, I'm gonna give me a little bit of wiggle space to get the other bolt in. Not gonna lie, this one looks impossible. We need to get this bolt somewhere over here. Yeah. Kind of difficult to show you guys because the front cover's in the way, but I ended up having to go with a different bolt with an Allen head, and then I used a wobble to tighten it up. I do believe they give you the bolts for that kit with the assumption that your front timing cover is off because it's impossible to get a socket to tighten that. But we had to get creative. It's on there, double clamp. So yeah, there'll be a little bit of a better seal now between the oil pump pickup and the oil pump. Another improvement we're gonna make before we go back together with the oil pan is, well, from my friends over at Improved Racing. Again, they make a lot of cool stuff for the LS, but this is a barbell that goes in the rear of the engine. Let me show you what the old one looks like, and I can tell you this, it's not nearly as fancy as this guy. I should have done all of this last time when I had the Trans Am, but you know, better late than never. Got a bunch of 10s for this rear cover. And if you guys are curious, the engine in the Trans Am is an iron block. It's a 6-liter out of like a Chevy Silverado or a Suburban or something like that. Okay, rear cover coming off, pretty easy to do. There's the back of our camshaft. All right, I'll take this seal off here. And here she is, guys, the barbell. I'll pop this out and then I'll tell you what exactly this thing does. That's pretty much it right there. You can see the difference here between the two. This one is gonna get an added seal on here. And basically the purpose of the barbell on the LS is because the block was machined on the outside, so there's an oil galley here, and that barbell is responsible for making the seal that sends the oil pressure to the oil filter, which is normally right here. So if that were to start leaking, the unfiltered oil would start off by going right to the cam journals right there. That's its first stop, and then all over the engine. So basically we wouldn't get any filtered oil, and you can also see a drop in oil pressure if that were to fail too. Now again, I never had a problem with the factory one. A lot of guys run this, but this is super inexpensive insurance, and the tolerance on this is much tighter than this. So from the factory, a little bit of oil seeps through and goes unfiltered, whereas this is gonna send all of it to the oil filter. We just wanna make sure the oil stays clean. One more thing, this shaft here is a little bit narrower than this one, so it'll allow more oil flow, so that's good. It's very important that we lubricate this before we go back together, so you know we got the old sunroof grease going on. There we go. And now this is simply going to slide in like that. And this one has an outside seal where the other one doesn't. That's pretty much it. So it doesn't need to go in any further than what you see right here. You are done. We're gonna replace this seal. The rear main literally has like 100 miles on it and it wasn't leaking at all. So we'll leave that one. Something I wanted to show you here is there is a cutout for that barbell. So this rear cover actually kind of pushes on it and makes sure that it's properly seated. Now they give you a tool for the rear main to install it over the crankshaft so it lines up right there. Then you push it on and you say goodbye to the tool. So there we go. I got some bolts started to hold the gasket in. We'll tighten this thing up. All the bolts are in, but they're not fully tightened. We're gonna wait for the oil pan for that. So let's attempt to get the oil pan back on with our baffle. Should be fun. Time to go back in with the oil pan. I have the engine jacked up again. We will be RTVing some corners, but I'm gonna put this in place first because I don't wanna smear it all. Please slide in there like factory. Oh, come on. Yes. Okay, all right. So if you guys are wondering, when you do the improved racing baffle, it doesn't make this any more difficult. I was kind of worried it was gonna get in the way, but it doesn't at all. Cool. Like many engines, you want a little RTV in the corners where the front cover and the block and the oil pan meet. We'll get some in there and we'll get some in the back as well. We're gonna draw the bolts in with our gun. Nice and slow like. Now we're going around and torquing everything. So we got 18 foot-pounds on all of the oil pan bolts, except the two long ones in the rear. Do not do these to 18, you will snap them off and they'll break into the rear cover and then you'll have a bad day. What's up, auto trans harness? You're soon gonna be gone. Now we can go back to our rear cover and just make sure these are at 18 foot-pounds as well. Oh, don't mind me, I'm just breaking something off my car. Come on now. Ah. You guys ever break something of metal, even if it's like hollow and thin and it's just so cool and manly? But I just broke the automatic dipstick. I was trying to get it out, I bent it, it started cracking, and I'm like, all right. I think you gotta take the intake manifold off to properly remove this. It's insane. And we should be able to get it from the top there now. Oh my gosh, half the engine is in the car on these. This dipstick is horrible. Get out! Auto guys, how do you get the dipstick tube out without ruining it? How? Okay, I think I got it. Get out, stop getting stuck on stuff. This is nuts. Well, that's going in the garbage for sure. I kind of made it. Sort of. It is time. It's time for transmission stuff. And Silver Sport Transmissions gives you a ton of instruction manuals here because of how many different vehicles these things can go in. But there's a lot of really important measurements, color pictures. This is amazing. The first one we're gonna do though is the inspection of the bell housing to crankshaft alignment. And we're gonna learn how to do this together because I've never done it before, but they're gonna teach us step by step. And I'm gonna teach you step by step. And I'm going to not film the parts that I don't understand at all until I understand them fully so that I can teach you guys without wasting any time, because that's pretty much what I do. Our first step is temporarily installing our flywheel, and this only goes on one way. There's a dowel hole right there, and then we can start getting these bolts in. We are upgrading to some ARP hardware that came with our kit. Okay, that's about it. We're not gonna torque this or put in the remaining bolts here because we have to install a dial indicator with a magnetic base, and this gives us, you know, some more surface area to bolt onto. Technically, this could go on the crankshaft, but I think this will be easier. Now, let's take this off right now. And this is our new bell housing. It is ultra light, but strong as well. And basically what we wanna make sure is that the alignment of this bell housing onto our engine is centered with the crankshaft because we don't want anything to be out of alignment. And this is very important. In order to retain your warranty on the whole transmission, you actually have to do this and then send like picture proof that you measured it and it's within spec, because it could be bad if it's off, and it has to be within like 5/1000ths of an inch, which is just over the thickness of a piece of hair. If you guys watched my Lightning engine building video, you know that. But anyway, let's put this bell housing on, and we do have to torque this as well. It's important that you torque the bell housing bolts, so we'll go around and double check that. With our alignment plate set up, our first step in measuring the bell housing to crankshaft alignment is finding a 0 point. So we're just gonna zero out our gauge. This is essentially gonna be a gauge check. So we're gonna get it to 0. It doesn't matter where you start off, really. So we're gonna get this to 0 and we'll lock it in right there. And we're gonna mark this, and this is currently 0. Now this is like a 2-man job at this point. So one person is gonna spin the crankshaft and we're going all the way around, and we just wanna make sure that our tool ends right back up at that line and reads 0. Then we know we're doing a clean sweep in that radius and we have our tool set up right. And stop. Perfect, look at that. All right, so now that we have our 0 again, we're just gonna look and see how high this number goes, whether it's a negative or positive. So right now we're in the negatives. I think that's gonna be about it, hopefully. Yeah, it's starting to go down. Okay, stop. So right around here, we have minus 10,000ths of an inch. And so what we have to do is re-zero our dial indicator and then go 180 from there. And just to give myself a reference point, we're just gonna draw a line here at the very bottom. So when that's up, we're at 180. So we're gonna go ahead and zero our gauge again. Gauge is zeroed at minus 10,000ths. And now we get to spin it around again. And we'll pay attention to that Sharpie line. And we're almost there, stop. If you overshoot it, just go back. All right, good. And because we zeroed up here, we're 180 off. We're at positive, 9, 10, something like that. And this is the number that you divide in half. So we have 5 thousandths, which is within spec. And if you were to use the entire number, the 10 thousandths, you would be putting the center line of your crankshaft off in the opposite direction, and you don't want that. So right now we are within spec and we're good. We're good to take the bell housing off again. And if you guys are off, they make these little offset dowels. So these have a high spot in them. These are 7 thousandths of an inch. So let's say we read like 14 thousandths of an inch, cut in half, that's 7, that would be over spec. So we would put these in there and hope to be within a couple thou. So these are about 20 bucks and they make aligning your bell housing, possible. All right, now that all that is done, we have to swap out the yoke. And this is the one that goes to the back of the transmission. So we have a beefier output shaft on this manual. That is one of the Magnum upgrades. So this is gonna spline in there once it's attached to the drive shaft. This one survived though. I mean, lots of 9-second runs and it was fine, and we're going even stronger. Luckily, we have some clips here that we can remove to make this easy. I said easy, easy. It'll pick in there, come on baby. Let's go. Oh, eh? Oh, I'm trusting my left hand here, I'm righty. You ever try to do something with your other hand and it fails you and you're just like, this is why I use the other one. I've tried to train the left. There we go, got it. Good job, left hand. So we still have to do a little bit of pressing action with a ball joint tool. So I have this set up with a cup, well, no cup in this case, that will accept the cap. So we're just gonna hit this from the bottom. She's almost out, come out. This is totally loose. It's literally a vacuum in there that I can't pull free. That's it. Jeez. Science, people. Just need a little bit of tool assistance here. Come on. There we go. Oh my gosh, look at all those needle bearings just freaking me out here. Stay. Don't want to lose these. It is a mess if these fall on the ground, but we should be good. Any needle bearings? No. There we go. Okay. Look at that. They all fell down. I got to straighten those out. We're going to retire this guy. It's been on the car for, 15 years or so. Got a new one. I'll take these caps off. We'll slide this in here and we'll install a cap right here. And we have our tool back in and we can push this in quite a bit by hand like that. All right, now we can slide the other end in like so. Trusty ball joint tool once again. And we'll tighten this guy up by hand, just draw these in like so. One side pushed in, and we just flip it over and do the other side. All right. I don't really like using the impact gun when going back together because right now it's just bottomed out. It's at the perfect point, and you don't want to compromise the cap by, ram-a-jamming with an electric impact. We got some new clips, so we'll squeeze them in place like that. Get in there, boy. Nice. All right. That's that.
Well, it's the next morning, and it's snowing, and we are 2 days away from spring, supposedly. I planned this Trans Am video for some nice weather to be able to drive it after, we 6-speed swap it, and this is what we have. Literally, it was fine. I was driving yesterday to go check out a vehicle, which I filmed a little bit on. There is a black one right there. That's not me. And yeah, here we go. So here's the frozen auto. It's frozen again. Oh, turn off wipers. Can't have this in my car. Anyway, let's brush off the Silverado. And you know, you always gotta do the wife's car. It's the right thing to do. Escalade's done. Always make sure to get the snow off of this upper seal area right here. Otherwise, when you open the door, the snow goes in. I didn't do that for me though. Let's get to the shop. Let's continue on with this manual transmission and hope that Chicago goes crazy again and that tomorrow is 80 degrees and sunny. Fingers crossed. I totally forgot to put the E55 wagon in the shop and it snowed. This is crazy. My poor baby. Don't worry, I will clean you. I gotta do a transmission right now.
Well, not only do we have snow out there, but I'm dealing with this, that is the crankshaft, and I've had to get very violent because this is the pilot bearing, or what's left of it. I'm destroying it, getting it out. But this still had the original pilot bearing from when it was a manual trans car. When I switched over to an auto, it just sits there. There's no reason to like take it out, but we wanna replace it now, and it's frozen. So I have to cut that race and then hopefully just get it out somehow. So let's do some more violence. Lots of this going on, guys, and I have to just do this really slowly so we don't, you know, gouge into the crank, but this is completely sealed. Metal shavings aren't going in the engine or anything like that, so we're good. Just lots of patience. Yay! This is great. Awesome week, people. All right, it's gotta be enough. I don't want to touch the crank. Every once in a while, I get the pick out here. Oh yeah, it's coming. Oh, my mic is magnetic, and it caught it. That's awesome. I've never had that happen before. Cool. Anyway, we got it out. That's great. And how bad's our crank? It's fine. It's fine. I mean, there's a little bit of a line here that's totally fine. Seriously, it's fine. It's like 1% of the surface area of this thing. Gets pressed in like crazy. That's why it was hard to get out, but it's gonna go in like that. All right, cleaned out the crank there, and we're gonna get it flush, and you can use a socket for this. Give it some love taps. Just make sure it's going in straight. That's looking good. We got the little big hammer in the mix here. We need more weight. This thing is tight. Get in there. I think we're all the way down. Oh yeah, we're good. And this sits nice and flush in there. And we'll spin the needle bearings and they're perfect. Okay, good deal there. Something else that I probably should have done is you can just take that bearing and put it in the freezer and then it'll be much easier. You can also heat the crank, but the freezer is kind of the safer bet to go and it works well. So I should have done that. But you guys can do it when you do this job. Next, we're gonna install our flywheel bolts, and we're using a combination of the ARP Ultra Torque, and that's just gonna go under the shoulder, and then we're gonna use some blue Loctite on the threads. And this lubricant from ARP is gonna ensure that we get a proper torque spec, so there isn't any friction between this washer section of the bolt and the flywheel. All right, so then we'll go ahead and install all of the bolts. I'm just gonna drive these in with the gun, no torque yet, and then we'll go star pattern like this, 50 foot-pounds. Okay. Flywheel is torqued. I always go back in here and clean up all of the lubricant so it's not, you know, flinging around inside of here. Before we go back in with the clutch, there's a little trick I always do. There's just a little bit of high temp grease for our pilot bearing. So these obviously come pre-greased, but I just like to put a little bit more in there. I think it'll give it a little bit of a longer life. There we go. We're gonna clean up the flywheel one last time. I'm running out of brake clean. That should be pretty good. Make sure there's no grease or oil or anything on here. We're good. This is gonna be our first disc that we install, and we're gonna be installing 2 of these bad boys. And what's really great about these McLeod clutches, well, they're made in the USA, they've been around forever, they're my favorite to use. But with the twin disc, you can have like a lighter than stock clutch pedal feel. It'll feel pretty much stock and better, but also be able to hold like 1,200 horsepower, and that's because we get the surface area of 2 of these guys. So I'm really excited about this. This is gonna feel so much better than stock. But anyway, they give you really good instructions. So this one says bottom, and this one says flywheel side, and they give you your alignment tool. So this is the end that's gonna go into the pilot bearing, right like that. Okay, so it's holding it in place. Next up, we have an adapter plate that's gonna bolt up to the flywheel. And some of these parts are kind of universal. So you can see here, they're drilled for many different applications. So when this is on the table, I made some markings, and we are gonna line up perfectly right there. Go ahead and tighten these up and we'll torque them. So I did use some Loctite on these bolts. We're gonna do star pattern on this guy as well. And this is 35 foot-pounds. Next, we have our McLeod clutch disc number 2. All right, there's that. So they're made in the USA. They got the 3-leaf clover thing here. I wonder if this was an Irish company. And is it McLeod or McLeod? How do you guys say it? McLeod or McLeod? I don't know now which one I've been saying for years. I think I'm gonna mix it up in this video. Next, we have our pressure plate, and it comes with a fat blue paint marker here and here. So those have to line up, and this just goes on studs. So really easy to install. There we go. Max, how do you pronounce this?
McLeod.
McLeod? All right, there's another one. there you go. I highly recommend reading instructions. I don't do it all the time, but for important stuff I do. It says do not use Loctite on these studs or nuts, so we're gonna do that. You can definitely get away with using the plastic alignment tool, but once we get to this point and everything's kind of aligned, I just like to go with an old input shaft from a T56 because it's metal, and there we go. Now it's all the way in there. I just kind of, I don't know, I trust it more. Personal preference, you could totally get away with these, but I made it in the box. All right, star pattern on this guy, and they want it in 2 stages, 25 foot-pounds, and then 35 foot-pounds. All right, 35? Come on, maybe. Yeah, there we go. All right, we're done. Cool. Clutch assembly is in, but we do have to take another measurement. First things first, you just want to make sure that these fingers are deeper than this face right here. You could use a straight edge, or if your finger is really straight, there's quite a gap in here, so we know that's good. Now we can remove this. Everything is aligned, and we got our bell housing going right back in now. This thing is almost a manual. This is more a manual trans car than an auto transmission car at this point, isn't it? Right? It's got a clutch. My Trans Am, we got a clutch. Right now we're taking a straight edge to the bell housing and a tape measure to the outside of the teeth on the pressure plate. And we're gonna get an inside measurement of this straight edge. It's kind of thick, but yeah, we're right at about 2 1/4. So what we're measuring for right now is the hydraulic bearing cushion. So that has to be within a certain spec, and they give you different spacers. Now, luckily we're working with basically, the T56 transmission. It's the Magnum version, but an LS engine. So we kind of already have this figured out. It just needs one of these spacers here. But if you guys are retrofitting this onto a different style of engine, you have a couple more measurements to make, but it's all self-explanatory. These instructions are amazing. Sorry, just playing. This thing's going in, guys. We are manual trans swapping, reswapping, double swap. I don't know. It's going in. That's what I mean. Got the exhaust to contend with. That'll be fun. If I aim it kind of on an angle, we'll be all right. This is our vent tube. Got this kind of sort of lined up. The exhaust is definitely getting in the way, but I think we're gonna be all right. Now it's just shimming to get the dowels in. We're almost there. I know, blood in the arms. Need a little break. Okay, let's do this. I have the transmission lined up in the bell housing, and just with the weight in the back, it's hard to get it to actually go flat without starting the bolts. So they're in the dowels. Now we're just kind of running in with the bolts. Now don't go to this first. Don't just start jamming the bolts in unless you know the dowels are perfectly lined up, which they are in this case. Otherwise you'll mess them up. We're looking good. Transmission is all bolted up. Now we do have the bleeder pointing down, but that is actually how they want you to do it. And they assure me that it'll bleed out just fine. So typically bleeders would point up, but that's just how it fits. Before we remove the trans jack, we have to swap to the manual cross member. And it says right here, V8 man and V8 auto, because if you're driving a stick shift car, you're more of a man. See, it says right there. Just kidding. Automatics are cool too. The transmount is the same from the auto and the manual, so we swap that over. And we'll start the center bolt so it'll hold it for us. Like that. It's being held in its own power of the trans cross member. We officially have a manual in here, guys. Oh, I'm so excited we're driving this thing today. Drive shaft time, people. Drive shaft time. All right, there's our new yoke going to its new home. There we go. Oh yeah. So I looked it up, and the automatic and manual drive shaft is the same. It's something I kind of remembered, but you forget a lot of stuff over the years, There we are. Cool. I'm back together with the starter, and with the Silver Sport Transmissions kit, you get this, which is so nice. It's made of metal. So this goes around the starter. Get it in there like that. Oh yeah, it's beautiful. So this is gonna block debris from getting in where the flywheel is. That is done. They give you another block off plate for this side as well. And it's probably a good time to get our oil filter back in. We don't have any engine oil in the engine, and there is no transmission fluid in our 6-speed manual either. They put a really big tag on there so you know that it's got no fluid, you gotta fill it, don't forget that. Speaking of fluid, you're gonna get 2 with this kit. This is the break-in fluid, so this is Dextron 3, and then we're gonna be using Synchro Mesh after about 500 miles of driving, so that'll be a bit. And we're just using our transfer pump for this, and we will fill until it starts coming out. Okay, there we go, it's coming out. We can remove this and put our drain plug in. Transmission is filled. Let's do some stuff up top. Under the hood, we have a lot of stuff to remove, and something that I'm a little bit sad about removing is the old Lingenfelter launch control module. This is a 2-step. So one of my other future plans is gonna be going to a standalone Holley engine computer, which is gonna have its own 2-step built in among many other features. It's gonna be cool. I've had this on the car for like 15 years, and every time I would pop the hood and people would be looking, they would just go to this immediately. They would skip over the turbo and any of the other stuff, and they'd be like, is this a Lingenfelter? Is this a Lingenfelter? I'm like, this is like $100 box. But that was the only thing people would stare at. So it was funny. A little annoying though, because they literally wouldn't look at anything else. But anyway, we don't need this anymore. We will have a 2-step eventually again, but it's gonna be through the Holley system. So yeah, and you guys know me, I don't like to drill where I don't have to drill. So this was just double-sided Velcroed on, and that was 15 years ago. It was solid. We're gonna be able to clear up a lot of room under the hood because look at all the harness. This goes right into the ignition coils. It's kind of a piggyback system. So now we can just do direct power to the coils, just like factory. Bam, okay, and that's this one. So now we just go in like that. Oh man, this is kind of satisfying, not gonna lie. We're gonna lose so much stuff. It's gonna be great. Goodbye, Lingenfelter. You've done very good at 2-stepping away. Lots of cool popping noises and whatnot. Oh man, it's kind of sad. There she is. I'm definitely hanging on to this for memories. I get to get rid of this stupid coolant bottle. This was dumb. Doesn't look good at all. Modern day Alex would never do something like this, but gotta think, I've been building this car since I was 18, so mistakes were made. Many mistakes were made. And this super cheap bottle from like AutoZone was one of them. Got it in there pretty good though, that's for sure. Get out. Stupid bottle. Okay, you're fine. You're fine. All right. Yes. Yeah, so this basically did absolutely nothing. This little overflow is pointless. All right, we're gonna take the battery out now just to get to that right there. That is the coolant reservoir, but it has been heavily modified. So this is part of the Alky Control methanol injection kit. You have to take your factory reservoir, or they do actually, and they cut a gigantic hole in it, and this turns into a meth tank. Methanol injection, you know, like race fuel. And that's why I needed this guy, because I got rid of my factory coolant reservoir. Luckily, they still make these things. So yeah, look at that, 70 bucks. Under the car, you can see the reservoir for the methanol. There is the gigantic pump, and this is the feed line, so we gotta get this off. I don't remember if there's any methanol left in here. It's been at least 5 years since I've activated it. There we are. Did it evaporate? Is it gone? Oh yeah, wow, bone dry. She gone. All right, pump's coming out. We're doing some serious weight reduction here, but look at this nice bracket that I made many years ago, even has little isolators and stuff. So yeah, this will be a good kit for someone. I'll definitely try and sell this thing. There we go. This is that main feed line, and it has a filter right here that just kind of wrapped up. There was no good way to really mount this, so anyway, that's that. And that's that. You know, I gotta clean up in here, guys. I actually painted my engine bay long ago. It's clear coated and everything, so it cleans up nicely. Look at that, much better. Let's drop our new tank in. This also acts as the battery tray as well. GM ingenuity there. We're eventually gonna remove these fittings and just weld them shut and repaint, but for now they're looped together, and I can get rid of all of this stuff right here. Next up for weight reduction is my onboard air system. So this is something I did a long time ago for my boost controller. It's an air pump and a 1-gallon tank, and since I had this, you didn't have to do this, I just put a hose in here so you could fill up your tires. But since I did this, now they have the portable tire inflators that are, you know, with lithium-ion batteries like I've shown on the channel before, so I don't need it for that, and I'm getting rid of the boost leash boost controller right there. Really cool setup, also kind of ancient at this point, but you could vary the levels of boost based on time, so you could launch at a certain amount of boost, and then like, you know, half second later it kicks in 10 PSI, a quarter second later it kicks in another 2 PSI, and you would fine tune this at the track for traction. So anyway, I don't need that system because the Holley system will do that too. We got a couple 10s hiding underneath all this rubber. That one, and that one. This is totally rubberized undercoating and not the tires. Not at all. These are long. Man, Alex of the past, jeez. There we go. All right, that's easy. For the pump, we have 4 nuts to remove. Again, more rubberized undercoating. Look at how thick this is. It's part of the car really at this point. Oh, there we go. We got some off. Could make a whole new tire out of this. Oh, she's in there. There we go. Cool. So there we go. There's our airline. Should be free now to remove this whole thing. There we are. This is a great system, guys. I highly recommend it. This is Viair. I don't know if this company's still around, but if for whatever reason you need a 1-gallon air tank in your car, this one works well. I just painted up the pedals, so these get very rusty just from the factory. They don't coat them with anything. So these used pedals that I got, I just painted gloss black. They're looking good. And I just want to say that this is the same day. This is the same day as this morning. Like, you see the wagon? You see the frozen auto? No snow, and it's a beautiful day. This is the definition of Chicago weather. We will have a snowstorm, and then it'll be beautiful. Okay, from up top, we have a master cylinder to install first, and I got this one from Tick, so it's gonna have an adjustability to it, which is really nice for pedal feel. And this goes down in there. See that hole? All right, there it is there. And just to get to everything easier, we pulled out the steering column. We have a ton of room in here. There was just a piece of plastic covering this up. Now we actually need to go over. Wrong hole. We gotta go over to this one, actually. Before we bolt up that master, we need to install our pedals because they share a couple of the same mounting points. And here are the automatic pedals. They also share the same mounting points. It's like a universal car, auto, manual, whatever. 3 pedals going in. Gotta line a lot of stuff up. There's some linkage stuff going on in here. Get in there. Okay, that's lined up with the studs. That's good. See our gas pedal here. Gets that right there. That's what it's gonna do. I'm just going around tightening up this bracket. All right, we got a brake pedal, ABS, gas pedal, and the most important one, our clutch pedal, which is kind of flopping around right now. I also installed the adjustment sleeve. That goes right there. And we have our reservoir as well. We still had the factory bracket from when this was a real 6-speed car. That's, well, one of the ways you can tell if one's been converted, if it still has this. Steering column going back in. You know how much I love stickers. Check this out. It says Pontiac right there with a build order for 1109. And this was October of 2000. It's a good steering column right here. All right, going back in. Because I like to steer, don't you? There we go. Somewhere about right there. Steering column is back in. I also put a few sheet metal screws in for our rubber boot. Looking good. That's pretty cool. It's got a 6 on it. Silver Sport gives you a shifter ball. So this is gonna be our short throw shifter, handle. But I love factory stuff. So I spent $300 on a brand new factory Hurst shift knob and the factory leather boot. It was very painful to click buy at $300, but that's just what this costs. And I really wanted it to look stock. Before we go back together with that really expensive Hurst shifter, let's bleed us some clutch fluid. So we're going together with some Redline .4 brake fluid. This is what they gave us in the kit for the transmission. All right, here's our bleeder, and we have a hose hooked up to it. And we're gonna suck the fluid out into our pneumatic fluid extractor. That's how we'll bleed it. I have this on temporarily, and we bled the clutch. It's feeling really good. Oh, this is really nice. This short throw is mint. Oh, this is so cool. All right, cool. So at this point, we are almost ready to start. Before we drive this thing, we gotta add some engine oil. That always helps. I'm going 540 Euro, because this is a European car. I run 540, that's what I had in the shop. So we're going for it. Oh, and something that's always annoyed me on the Trans Am was the air filter that I had. It never really fit perfectly on the turbo. It was just slightly off. This one is perfect. Look at that. All right, guys, got the battery hooked up. This is gonna be our first start. Here we go. It runs. All right. I'm in neutral. Wow, this clutch feels so good. I'll make a more proper wiring repair, but we had to jump the neutral safety switch in the harness for the auto because it wouldn't start without that. Got the clutch in, first gear. Releasing, I'm releasing. Oh, it's moving. All right, there's reverse. We have reverse. This is great. All right, I'm gonna go check over leaks. We gotta get a center console in here, and we're gonna go for our first ride with this being a stick for the first time in like 15 years. All right, center console, going back in. Don't hit the dash. Okay. My dash is in like mint condition. I removed the boost leash, but these are just little Velcros. I gotta clean that up. Get in there. All right, guys, this is all done. Beautiful, brand new leather. Only problem is this will not fit on this, so I'm gonna have to get a different shifter rod here so we can get our Hurst back on. This looks good, but I will do this eventually. Let's go for a ride, guys. I'm gonna move my seat up here, I'm not that tall. Oh, and check it out. I just swapped out to some racing shoes. I'm just kidding. My pants and my boots were disgusting, and I like my TA. Like a champ. Oh, the clutch feels good. guys, you know, before I go cruising, I gotta pick something. There we go, Blink-182, you know it. Oh, one song only, that's weird. Love Blink-182. Anyway, let's roll. All right, this is the first time all the way out with the clutch. Oh, this is crazy. This car is not loud at all, by the way. So we have the T-tops off right now, and you'll see it's super quiet. Man, is this car quieter? It's so weird. Oh, yes. We get to blow off. In between gear changes, yes. Oh, this transmission feels so good. I want to rip on it, but I can't. I got to break in for the clutch and the transmission. So for the clutch, it's rated at 1,200 horsepower, but they also say you need to do 1,200 like clutch cycles, like basically push the clutch in and out, and 1,200 of those, which is probably, I have no idea how much that is, like 500 miles, let's say, if driving. I guess it depends, but anyway. Oh, this is cool. This car is so quiet. Oh, yes. Oh my gosh. Guys, I want to rip on it so bad. But you know what? Even just driving it normally is so cool. T-tops off. It feels and sounds like a stock car right now. It's so weird with the exhaust. I don't remember it being so quiet, but it feels like I'm like, you know, I was 18 when I bought this thing, and it was a stick and it was quiet like this. And I immediately took the T-tops off, and I remember the salesman when I pulled out of the lot, and he's like, hey, wait. He's like, you got a magnet stuck on your car. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm getting out to get the magnet. He's like, a chick magnet. And I'm like, oh man, that was good. He was like your quintessential like mid-50s car salesman, smoked a lot, but it was the coolest day of my life, let me tell you. Ooh, that Infinity's having a bad day. Smoke everywhere. Woo, stinks. Oh. Yes, I hope you guys can hear this. All right, so that's fourth. Let's try a little fifth and sixth. Yes, this thing's gonna be a hyper-miling monster now. It's got a 370 gear in the back, and with the 6-speed manual, it should get mid-20s on the highway. And speaking of the highway, let's just hit the highway. Why not? Oh. The shifter is mint. The one that Silver Sport gives you is perfect. There's no need to get anything else. All right, guys, we're cruising. We are cruising on the highway in my 6-speed WS6. And whenever you see one of these for sale, especially a nice like low mileage one, first thing people say in the comments, is it a manual? And if it's not, it's like, oh man, low mileage one. If it's an auto, they're like, just drive it. Oh, this is so cool. It feels so good to be back. And we have so many more mods for the Trans Am. Like I mentioned, I'm gonna be doing a full Holley engine computer and harness. We're gonna do even bigger brakes, different wheels, different suspension, some cosmetic stuff. It's gonna be amazing. We're bringing the TA back. We already got the Lightning back a couple weeks ago. I got a lot of like 90s and 2000s classics just kind of coming back to life in 2025. And coming very soon, I think the next video after this, we're getting back into some European cars, some very broken European cars. Well, one, and it's a brand I've never had on the channel before. So here we are, we're cruising on the highway at like 60, and the speedo's a little off right now. That's just because we have it tuned for the automatic, which obviously has 4 gears and different gear ratios and all that kind of good stuff. So we gotta fix all that. There's still plenty to do, that's for sure. Get out of here, get out of here. Hey! No way. I have no idea who that is, but he's got a white WS6, and I used to have the chrome C5Z06 rims just like that. This is the best day ever. I'm kind of sick. I've been sick for a while. The lightning beat me up and stuff, but I don't care. This is awesome. We're back. This is too cool. Flooded Silverado GTR. We made it. I don't actually have an e-brake yet. That's on the list of stuff to do. When I went auto, I kind of gutted the e-brake stuff, you know, race car weight reduction. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, my 2001 Trans Am WS6 Ram Air 6-speed manual. And like I said, there's a lot more to come with this car, so I hope you guys stay tuned for that and the upcoming maybe mini series. We'll see how bad this Euro car is. But anyway, I hope you guys really enjoyed this video. I had a blast making it. I'm so happy to be rowing gears again in this car. So if you did enjoy it, give it a big thumbs up. Share the video with your friends and family and fellow F-Body enthusiasts. Subscribe to the channel if for some reason you haven't already. It's a free little button there and it really helps me out. But most importantly, I hope you guys have a fantastic day and I'll see every single one of you in the next video. With a 2 steps, that's that. This is a 4-inch aluminum drive shaft. What is this?
How's it going?
Man, Amazons. It's an auto.
Engine?
Yes, it's an engine. It's a weird looking one. Just a little 10 mil, so we have it on a stupid air pressure. Like a blow off valve. Now, like many engines, you just want to, like many engines, you want a little RTV in the corner. Underneath the car, this is that same tank, so you can see our made feed line. Under the car, you can see the Elke control kit. Totally forgot to put the E55 wagon in the shop last night, and it rained. It snowed, it didn't rain. This is snow, people. We're running a twin disc clutch, and that's because it's going to be awesome. So so the reason I'm running, so this is gonna be our first, and we'll start the center bolt. Okay.